first, what I wanted to talk about are herbs. So, herbs are something, again, that are super simple to grow yourself in the backyard. And I absolutely love to grow an abundance of herbs. So we grow so many different things like basil and thyme and oregano and sage. And there are so many ways to go about preserving these because they grow super fast and you get a huge harvest of them. And it's really great. So we always have a huge abundance of herbs, especially around this time of year, especially with basil, because basil is probably one of our very favorite companion plants. And we plant this like everywhere. So anytime we have any sort of tomato or pepper, things like that, I am pretty much always planting basil next to it just because it helps so much with the pest management as well. So I always want to grow a bunch of basil. So it never fails that we just have these like huge bouquets of basil that we're walking in with at the end of the season. Now, we do let some of it like flower and go to seed out in the garden because it can actually replant itself and it'll help bring in pollinators too. The pollinators absolutely love those flowers at the end of the season. So I always try and keep a couple of them out there, but for the most part, I'm taking them inside and I'm preserving them. So, a few of the ways that I go about preserving them, like I said, there's so many different ways that you can go about doing this. Um, One of my very favorite things to do, and super simple, is up in the top corner here. You'll see the blue ice cube trays. So, this is simply you can take any sort of herb and just simply either slice it up, run it through a food processor, any of those things, and just put them into these ice cube trays and then pour some olive oil over top of it and then lay it into the freezer and then you can pop those ice cube trays out and you can see right here this is actually a frozen one down here at the right underneath it. That is a frozen blob of the oil and herbs. So this is a super simple way to go about preserving it. It'll stay good in the freezer for a very, very long time. And whenever I go about making like a pasta or tomato sauce or anything like that, I will just pop one of these ice cubes out and put it onto my pan and it'll start to melt. And those herbs right there will come out and oh, it's amazing. It'll preserve it so well. I absolutely love it. So that's something super simple to do. And I just simply, whenever they are frozen solid, I will go through and pop them out of those little ice cube trays. And then I put them into a freezer safe Ziploc bag. And that's all I do. So whenever I go through and I need one, I just pop one out of that Ziploc. Okay, Mary wants to know, is it best to have the ice tray covered or use a tray that has a lid? So that's a great question. So I'm actually not keeping it in this ice tray long term. All I'm doing is just freezing it in that ice tray and then I'll pop them out and I'll put them in the Ziploc. So it really doesn't matter if you have it covered. Now, if you wanted to keep it long term in this tray, I would definitely recommend putting a lid on it. But I only freeze them in that. So typically like 24 to 48 hours. And then I'm popping them out of there and popping them into a Ziploc freezer safe bag. Okay, Allison says she has so much sage. That is an amazing problem to have because sage is one of my favorites. I love it. What can I do with it and best methods for preserving? Okay, so then I'm going to skip the middle one. I'm going to go over to this pesto right here on the end. I absolutely love this sage pesto that we make. And I believe they already posted a link over here to the side of our sage pesto recipe. It is absolutely amazing. Love it. I was super surprised as to how good it is because I feel like most of the time, whenever people talk about pesto, it's like a basil pesto or something like that. But this sage pesto was super, super great. Um, And like I said, we have the recipe over here to the side. And what's great about this recipe is that you can make this recipe and put it in the fridge and eat it, or you can preserve it. You can freeze this recipe, like freeze it in this jar and then pull it out whenever you want to eat it later. So that's a great way of going about preserving it for long-term use as well. For us, it never really lasts long enough to make it to the freezer, unfortunately, because it just tastes so good. We pretty much just eat it right away. But if you make enough of it, you will be able to preserve some of the pesto as well and pull it out in the middle of winter. Oh, it will be amazing. And it's one of the really, really great recipes. So make sure you check that out. I hope you enjoy it. And then, so the other way that I want to talk about herbs is probably the most common thing that everybody thinks about is just simply drying herbs. Um, Again, super easy to do. You don't necessarily have to have a dehydrator. It helps for sure if you do. It helps to speed up the process. We have a picture of it up here at the in the middle section of the process that we went through of drying herbs. Um, so this is going to be primarily with those woody herbs that we use this for. So things like oregano, sage, thyme, rosemary, you know, those ones. Not necessarily basil. For basil, I do more of the ice cube trays or the pestos as well again. Um, so these ones, all I do is just take some cuttings of the herbs and you can either lay them flat in the dehydrator and set them to dehydrate them for you, or you can go through and just hang them upside down. We've done both methods and they both work really well. Um, just obviously, it's going to take a little bit longer to hang them upside down, but it is kind of cool. And you have a unique decoration, I feel like. I enjoy doing it that way too. Um, and then we have it's really fun. And then at the end of a couple weeks, we'll have some herbs that are ready to go. So all we do at that point is the picture of the kids right here. All they're doing is just pulling off those dried leaves at the end. And they're going through and just grabbing those woody stems and just pulling those leaves off. And it's super simple because all you have to do is just run your hands along it and they just immediately come all off. Um, so we then just move them over to like a jar. So whether it be, you know, something that we keep stored in our cupboards and of course label it with what it is. And then it is super great. It is a really great way to add it to any sort of recipes that you're making inside. We have a whole bunch of them. So you can do anything like thyme, rosemary, all of those. Thyme's probably my favorite to do this too, just because, or oregano too. Any herb, I feel like it's makes it really easy and really great. So drying herbs, really great way to go about preserving. Easy. You don't have to have a freezer or anything like that. So you don't necessarily have to worry about anything. So that's always a nice bonus that you don't have to use any electricity or anything like that if you're just hanging it upside down and then popping it here.